Alright, this video is going to include some homework problems, and I don't know exactly which homework problems, but every semester I get the same type of questions on homework, so I wanted to go ahead and beat it with a video. So let's look and remember, when you are solving equations that have fractions, you always want to find a common denominator first. So the common denominator for this first equation, we have 3 over 5x plus 6 over 5 equals negative 3 over 5. 5 is the only denominator they have, so 5 is going to be the common denominator. So I'm going to multiply each term by 5. Now remember, if it's the same number, the 5's will cancel out and I'm just left with whatever's on top. So the 3x, the 5's are going to cancel out and I'm just left with a 6. The 5's are going to cancel out and I'm just left with the negative 3. So after I get rid of the fractions, I have a pretty easy equation to solve. So I want to get this x by itself, so I want to get rid of this plus 6, so I'm minus 6 to both sides. It cancels out on the left side, I brought it to the right, and I'm only left with 3x on the left. On the right I have the same sign, so I'm going to add and keep the sign. And I have 3x equals negative 9. Now I'm going to relocate this up here, not so I don't bunch the next problem. And I want to divide both sides by whatever's with the x, the same sign, don't forget, because you want to make a positive one. And I have x equals negative 3. The next one is pretty similar. We have a fraction happening again. So I have 9 and 3, so a common denominator. Remember, the common denominator cannot be any smaller than that largest number, so it has to be 9, because 3 goes into 9. So I'm going to multiply each term by 9. And for the first fraction, the 9's cancel out completely, and I'm just going to be left with the 5x. For the second one, I say 3 will go into 9 3 times, and then you multiply what's left 3 times the numerator, so 3 times 1 is 3. And then there's nothing to cancel out, so I'm going to multiply 3 times 9 and get 27. So again, I don't have any more fraction left, and I just want to get the x by itself. So I'm going to move whatever's with the x, and this minus 3 needs to go first. So I'm going to add 3 to the opposite operation and add 3 to both sides. I'm going to be left with 5x on the left side, and 27 plus 3 is 30. Divide both sides by 5, and x equals 6. Now these two are pretty similar to things we had in our notes, but the next one, and I did mention that we might have decimals, but we didn't have an example in our notes, so I wanted to do an extra example with decimals. Now just like fractions, you want to get rid of the decimals. So however many places past the decimal you have, that's how you're just going to move your decimal over that many places. So I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right, and I'm going to get 50x. So what you're really doing is you're just kind of rewriting it without the decimal. But if you move this one 2 places, you have to move all of them 2 places. So I have 50x, and then 35 times 70 equals, move this one 2 places, and I get 25 times 130. Now this is going to produce some pretty big numbers. So when I write 50x down, I'm going to come over to the side and actually show that step. And I might do it up here because we have a little bit of scratch room. So I have 70 times 35. And remember, when you're multiplying, you multiply 0 times 5 is 0. 5 times 7 is 35. Add a 0, and then 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 7 is 21. Add down, I get 0, 5, 4, 2. So I have 2,450. Don't worry, because this one's just going to be just as large. Eventually these numbers will cancel each other out or get smaller when I move and do the additive inverse to both sides. So I'm going to multiply 130 and 25. So 0 times 5 is 0. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. add a 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. So I have 0, 5, 12, and then 2 times 1 is 3. So I'm going to get 3, 2, 5, 0. So the hard part's basically done. What we need to do now is to get the x by itself. So first I'm going to do the additive inverse. So I'm going to do the opposite of plus 2, 4, 5, 0. So I'm going to do the opposite of adding 2,450, and I'm going to subtract it to both sides. So I have 50x equals, and when I subtract this, I'm going to get 800 because this is 0, 0. And when I borrow, I'm going to get 8. Now a trick, I want to get the x by itself. I'm dividing by 50. A trick to make your numbers smaller is if you're dividing and they both end in 0, that's the same thing as canceling 0 out. So this is just like having 80 over 5, which reduces to 16. So this is my answer. I know this one's a little hard, a little weird, but remember you want to get rid of decimals just like you got rid of fractions.